If you look up Mooji online, you find two very different pictures. In one picture, he is a wise and liberating spiritual teacher. In the other, he is surrounded by alarm, controversy, and stories of psychological harm. So what is actually going on? I think the deepest problem is not just one scandal, one accusation, or one bad teaching point. The deeper problem is the structure of the system itself. Because Mooji's teaching uses the language of freedom, but it can also leave people more confused, less trusting of their own judgment, and more dependent on the system that explains what is happening to them. That is the core concern. A lot of the teaching rests on a strong contrast. There is the person, the mind, the ego, the fearful self, the one with doubts and problems. And then there is awareness, the true self, the witness, the deeper reality behind all thought. That can sound profound. It can also bring real experiences of distance from thought, relief, or peace. But the problem is what happens next. Because once that contrast becomes strong enough, people can start mistrusting too much of their normal inner life. Fear becomes ego, doubt becomes resistance, confusion becomes spiritual process, ordinary life concerns become attachment. And once that happens, it gets harder to tell the difference between a real warning sign and something the teaching tells you to move past. That is one of the main reasons the system can become so hard to question from the inside. And this is also where an important distinction needs to be made. Because some of this language sounds very close to older nondual or Ramana-style teaching. Talk of awareness, witness, and detachment from personhood is not unique to Mooji. So the problem is not just the vocabulary, the problem is how that vocabulary functions in practice. In a more careful tradition, language about awareness would not usually mean distrusting all doubt, downgrading ordinary judgment, or treating confusion and destabilization as signs of spiritual progress. That is why this should not be read as a criticism of non-duality in general. It is a criticism of the way similar language may be repurposed here. The most serious issue with the environment around Mooji is not just that distress is present in Mooji's world. Distress exists everywhere. Any spiritual space will contain people who are anxious, depressed, confused, overwhelmed, or vulnerable. The stronger concern is that distress often gets given spiritual meaning. Fear may be treated as the ego resisting. Pain may be treated as purification. Confusion may be treated as a breakthrough. Overwhelm may be treated as part of grace. And when that happens, suffering stops functioning clearly as a warning. Instead of meaning slow down, get grounded, step back, it can start to mean stay with it, surrender more, do not identify, and trust the process. That is already troubling, but I think there is an even sharper concern. The system may not only reinterpret destabilization after it appears, it may also at times help create or intensify the state it later explains. This should be said carefully. I am not saying every follower has the same experience. I am not saying one single mechanism explains everything, but there is enough in the public material to raise the question seriously. In some exchanges, people appear to be pushed into narrowed, pressured, or disoriented states. They speak about fear, losing touch with ordinary life, losing stability, losing trust in their own mind. And those reactions are not always treated as reasons for caution or to reality check the process. Instead, they are folded back into the teaching. So the person is not only distressed, their distress is being explained for them, and sometimes they are being encouraged to stay inside it. That matters because many people in these systems blame themselves. They think their fear means they are failing. They think their confusion means they are resisting truth. They think they just need to surrender more completely. But sometimes the better question is not, what is wrong with this person? Sometimes the better question is, what is this system doing to their ability to think clearly, stay grounded, and trust their own warning signals? That to me is the real issue with Mooji. Not just that the teaching is controversial, Not just that scandals exist around him, but that the system can become very hard to question from within, and may leave some people less stable, less self-trusting, and more dependent than before. So if you want the shortest version, it is this. Mooji's teaching uses the language of liberation, but in practice, it can also create conditions in which confusion and dependence start to feel like spirituality. And if you have experienced that kind of destabilization yourself, it may not be a sign that you are weak, broken, or failing. It may be a sign that the system itself is affecting how you interpret your own experience.